and welcome to Cooking with Katerina. Today I'm going to show you how to make sushi rolls, and more specifically sushi rolls with quinoa instead of sushi rice. I've had a lot of people ask me how to do these because I always post photos of it on Facebook because I love to make it. So I thought instead of writing out a recipe I would just show you how I make it because it's a lot easier and it will be more helpful than me trying to explain it. So what you will need to make your sushi rolls is a pack of seaweed, roasted seaweed. There's usually 5 to 7 or sometimes 10 sheets per pack. This one has 10 sheets. And then you will also need some cucumber and crab sticks, imitation crab sticks, seafood sticks, whatever they're called in your country. They're called different things everywhere. 1 or 2 avocados. I'm going to use quinoa, but you can also use sushi rice or sticky rice, some rice vinegar, and then you will also need a saucepan for making your quinoa. I use a cup to measure the quinoa and the water, but you can also use a measuring cup, and then I use a little bowl to put some water in near the end, but you'll see that later. And then also a sharp knife to cut your vegetables and your sushi at the end. So these ingredients that I'm using are going to be for a sort of California roll type sushi roll, but you can also use things like tuna, salmon, egg, tofu, whatever you like. But this is for the basic sort of California roll. Okay, so now we're going to start with cooking the quinoa or the sushi rice. Usually just follow the instructions on the package, because it will vary from package to package, I think. But for quinoa, I find that it's usually 1 part quinoa to 2 parts water. So I'm going to use 1 cup of quinoa and 2 cups of water, and that makes about enough quinoa for 5 sheets of roasted seaweed. And 5 sheets of roasted seaweed gets you you get about 6 to 8 rolls per sheet. So you'll get about 35 to 40 rolls in the end. And that depends on how thick you cut them or how thin you cut them. You could probably get more if you cut them quite thin, but a medium-sized one you'll probably get about 6 to 8 pieces. So what you do first is you measure out 1 cup of quinoa. I do it over the sink because if it gets everywhere it's not fun to clean up. Like that. Alright. So there's about 1 cup of quinoa right there. And what you want to do is you want to rinse it out. So, it's not. Now, so I'm going to use 1 cup of quinoa. I've already measured it out, and usually I rinse it, because you're supposed to rinse it, but it sort of just went through this thing, so I'm not going to bother rinsing it, but you should rinse it. So there's 1 cup of quinoa going in the saucepan, and I usually measure it out over the sink because if it gets all over the place, it's not fun to clean up the quinoa because it seems to bounce around everywhere. Okay, and then you're good. So I put 1 cup of quinoa in there, and now I'm going to put 2 cups of water. So there's 1 cup of water, and 2 cups of water. Now if you're using sushi rice, just follow the instructions on the package. Even if you're using quinoa, they all sort of have different rules. So just use the instructions, follow the instructions that are on the package to get it accurate. But for this quinoa, it says to use 1 cup, or 1 part water for 2 parts. 1 part quinoa for 2 parts of water. Okay, so let's cook this quinoa. Right, so now we are going to cook the quinoa. So just put it on the burner or the hob. What you want to do is you want to bring it to a boil and then simmer it until the water has been absorbed. That takes about 20 minutes. So just have it turned on there. Just going to stir it in, make sure it's all in the water there. Wait for it to come to a boil. Quinoa, you can see, it has started to boil. And I'm just getting another stir there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the heat and cover it, and I'm going to let it simmer for about 20 minutes or until the water has absorbed. So yeah, it takes about 20 minutes. Just keep checking back on it and sort of stirring it a little bit. And in the meantime, let's chop our vegetables for the sushi. Now we are going to prepare the filling for the sushi rolls, and I've already chopped it up here. We have cucumber, seafood sticks or imitation crab, and avocado, so it'll be a sort of California roll. Now what you want to do when you're chopping up these vegetables is make sure it covers the width of the seaweed, because it's going to go across here, so you don't want it too long or too short. You just want it the right amount there. So I've already chopped it up, but basically when you're chopping the cucumber, this is how we're going to chop it here. Well, this is how I chop it, but basically you're going to cut it in half, and then you're going to cut it in half again, so into quarters, and then the quarter you're going to cut in half. There you go. So that is about the size I do for the cucumber. You don't want it to be too thick because you want to be able to roll it, and if you have too much stuff in there, it'll be difficult to roll. So these pieces here, as you can see, cover the width of the seaweed. Now, that's it for the cucumber. The seafood sticks come, the ones I have come in this size here. So to cover the width of the seaweed, it takes 2.5. So for one of the long ones you'll have to cut in half, and that gives you the right width there. And then the avocado, obviously you won't be able to get it the right width, so you're going to have to use multiple pieces, maybe do some slicing near the end there, but this is how I slice my avocado. Just do it thinly. Everybody cuts their avocado differently though, so do it whatever way you find easiest. And then I kind of just go along the outside there, and I kind of just scoop it out. There you go. Alright. Okay, so there we have our avocado. So obviously you can see it's going to take a couple pieces to get it to fill the width. And you can always kind of slice it a bit thinner as well. Okay, so that's that. Let's check on the quinoa now and see how it's doing. Okay, so you can see the water has been absorbed. Okay. So now what we're going to do to turn it off is you're going to put some rice vinegar inside. Alright, so I just sort of poured in maybe about one tablespoon for 1 cup of quinoa, and then you just sort of mix it in. It gives it that vinegary sushi rice flavor. Yeah, so it depends how vinegary you want it to taste. And I find it sort of also makes it a bit sticky as well. Let's let that sit for a little bit. Alright. So now, when you take out the seaweed, it's quite crispy and stiff, so you have to be careful because it can rip easily. It becomes moist when you get some sort of liquid on it or something moist like the cucumber. So you can see this, I had put the cucumber on it, so it's already quite moist. So you just want to be careful. Okay, you just want to be careful until you get something moist on there so that you don't rip it. Alright, so we are going to now add the rice. So you don't want to put too much because it might be difficult to roll it after. So if you're using a rolling mat, you place this on top of the rolling mat. But I'm not using a rolling mat, so I'm just putting it on the chopping board. Now most seaweed sheets have some sort of lines. You can see some lines there. I usually don't go past that line and past this line here because it makes it difficult to roll and difficult to close. So you want to sort of do a thin layer, sort of like a square. So just put some on there, and then I spread it throughout. I just use the bottom of a spoon, the back of the spoon, to sort of spread it there. A little bit more. Like I said, you don't want too much because then it makes it a bit difficult to close, especially with all the other things you're going to be putting in there. Sometimes it's easy to just use your finger as well. Alright, so you can see I've left this little gap open there, the little, and down here as well. Alright, so now we're ready to put the vegetables in there. Okay, so cucumber, just place it down. 2.5 pieces of the crab sticks, or whatever size it comes in. Just make sure it covers the width. I always put the half piece in the middle because sometimes if it's too short it might just fall out the end when you're rolling it. So there's that, and then the avocado. You can sort of just put it on top there. So there's a little gap. It doesn't have to be perfect. There you go. Okay, so now I'm going to roll it. So you want to pick it up and sort of hold this here. Okay. And sort of push it in as you come up there. See, I've rolled it once. Just sort of push it in so it all gets in there. It will stick out of the sides a little bit. You can push it in a bit. And then roll again. Just keep it tight when you're rolling it. Sort of like when you roll a burrito. Just keep it tight there. Just keep rolling. There we go. So now when you come to this bit here, I like to use a little bit of water because that makes it a bit sticky, I find. There you go. So I just put a bit of water there, and then I hold it there and just sort of squeeze. Just leave it there. In the meantime, take your knife and rinse it because it's going to be easier to slice with a wet knife to cut through the seaweed. So I'm just going to rinse it here. So you can see my knife is wet there. Okay, so now I'm going to slice. So you want them to be about however thick that is. It's up to you really, but I like them about that thick. So then just slice through, and with a wet knife it should slice really nicely. And I keep the part that the edge that I fold it in, I keep it on the bottom, so I'm applying pressure to it to make sure that it stays closed. Okay. And sometimes it does stick out of the end, so just slice that bit there. And you can sneak that piece while you're cooking. Tastes good. Alright, so this was the other edge. You see a little bit sticking out there as well. You can see now when we turn it over, how awesome do those look? Pretty nice, huh? Looks pretty good. Now we'll do it with the rest of it. It's easy if you have a plate to store them on while you're doing it. So, just place them all on a plate. Okay, now I'll do one more. so it's quite stiff there. Now we're going to put the quinoa on it. Or sushi rice, whatever you want. Alright. Okay. Now, cucumber. You can really do it whatever order you want, but I just like doing it this way. 2 pieces of crab, and another half piece in the middle, and avocado. Now, to roll, hold it in, roll, bring it back, and squeeze it. Roll, just keep it tight as you're rolling. You can see I'm sort of squeezing as I go. See, if you put too much rice, it kind of goes out to the edge, so don't put too much near the edge. Some water on the edge there. Alright. See, from the squeezing it all sort of goes at the edge, so there we go. Now, remember to have a wet knife. Okay. Slice. 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 Okay, so that's gotten us about 7 pieces. I wouldn't really count that as a piece, so you can just eat that one if you want. Treat yourself. Okay. These are a bit thicker pieces as well, so there you go. 7 pieces. Alright, so just keep doing that. Like I said, this is going to yield about 5 sheets of seaweed. So there you have it. Your homemade quinoa California rolls. Like I said, you can use anything for the inside. You don't have to use crab, avocado, and cucumber. You can use tuna, salmon, anything really. And you can also use sushi rice. Now all you need is some soy sauce, ginger, wasabi, some chopsticks, and bon appetit. Enjoy, let me know how you like it. And I'd like to say thank you to my cameraman. Fantastic job, Perry.
No problem.
Let's dig in. Sayonara. Okay, so now we're going to start with cooking the sushi. So you want to use, for quinoa, 1 part quinoa for 2 cups. 1 part quinoa for 2 parts of water. But for this quinoa, it says to use 1 cup, or 1 part water for 2 parts. 1 part quinoa for 2 parts of water. But for quinoa, I find that it's usually 1 part quinoa to 2 parts water.